Someone needs to tell the World Cup scriptwriters to go back to the drawing board because no one's going to believe this one. This is the ArsenalVision World Cup Daily. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner, the final World Cup Daily. And I'm going to just tell you in advance, it's not going to rival the match. All right. I mean, whatever job we do, we're not going to do that good a job. And yeah, if the scriptwriters came to you and said, hey, we have an idea for a script, it's going to feature the greatest player of all time in his sport and the young pretender to his throne going up against him toe to toe in the biggest match of the biggest tournament in the sport, and they're going to trade blows, and it'll look like the old legend has it, but the young buck will fire back and blah blah blah. You'd be like, no, syrupy, not believable. It's exactly what we got. It's everything you'd hope a final could be. It's everything narratively, everything visually. Sure, there might have been 40 minutes of meh in there, but that only served to make what happened after more incredible. And we're going to try to explain what we just watched, cover the moments, maybe put the history we've just seen into context, and a quick look back on the tournament. When I say we, of course, I'm talking about Phill Costa. You can find him on Twitter at _Phill Costa. Hello, Phill Costa.
And breathe. And breathe.
Breathe. Yeah.
I mean, what a way to round these podcasts out. What a way. I mean, that was, I said it on Twitter, I think that was genuinely the most incredible match I've ever seen.
I needed to go to the bathroom for like 45 minutes. Didn't want to do it for fear that I'd miss something incredible.
I was opening windows. I was closing the windows. I was looking at my phone. I was nervously squeezing every part of my thigh that I could. It was just incredible. Really, I loved it, and I had no skin in the game, and my heart didn't stop racing for the last 65 minutes of that, and it was brilliant.
It was incredible, and so going to the beginning, and we'll work our way through it. But like this game, Phil. So obviously, I think one of the surprises was Angel Di Maria from the left. Rabiot comes back into midfield. Otherwise, I think mostly what we expected. But like, I feel like narratively, this kind of followed a narrative that made sense to me early on, which is maybe France haven't been quite as good as has been represented. Argentina actually have been quite good. Now, the irony is they've been quite good in that they've led in every game by 2 goals and then conceded in most of them and wound up losing the lead. Well, it happened again. But to be fair, Phil, when they wound up with a 2-goal lead, it sort of felt to me like, yeah, you know what? Argentina probably on the balance have been the better team in the tournament. So just from a very high level, at that point, were you looking at this game as A, game over, and B, sort of representative of maybe what we might have thought of these two teams respectively?
I think so. I mean, for 79 minutes, there was no contest. I mean, it was... Argentina had obviously done their research. I think Scaloni made a really interesting tactical call by playing Di Maria on the left. But there was just nothing from France. Really, really nothing at all. I mean, they didn't have a shot for 68 minutes? 69 minutes? And it was just the same kind of tactical exploitations with Theo Hernandez out of position, Upamecano being a bit of a bull in a china shop, steaming around all over the pitch, fouling people. And Argentina were just getting in time and time and time and time again. And nothing seemed to be changing, even though, Deschamps made that first half substitution, double substitution. And at one point I was kind of expecting France to do something. And they just weren't. And then football happened. I mean, it's quite incredible how in this particular sport, momentum can just shift in seconds. And they could have even won it in normal time after coming back. And it was just mad. I mean, there's a lot to break down from this, but the general kind of momentum of the game, the feeling of the game changed basically for no time at all for 80 minutes. And then the rest of it was a basketball game. It was like watching the NBA playoffs. And it was incredible.
It was absolutely incredible. So let's start with the first goal. Penalty for you. I mean, I saw a lot of people say it's soft. I think Dembele, first of all, it's lazy defending. Like he gets his legs too close together. Like he gets spun like a top, and then he's chasing, and then I mean, I think he clips his heel and does the thing where you make someone else's heel knock against their own foot and like tangles them up. I have it as a penalty, and I'm curious if you do as well.
It's a penalty. For me, it's really soft. From a couple of perspectives, I think,
Mhm.
like you said, Dembele is so lazy there. I mean, look, no one's asking you to be, the reincarnation of Takahiro Tomiyasu, but just do your job. Like,
Tomiyasu isn't dead, by the way. You don't need to be reincarnated. You could
do we know
just be
that?
like,
Who's seen him?
Touche.
Yes. Who's seen him in the last 10 days? But yeah, it's he was having a shocker anyway. I mean, how many times was the ball rolling under his foot, misplaced passes, loose touches, and Argentina's clear tactic was to overload the right side, get it to Messi, get it to Di Maria, and then isolate him 1v1 against Jules Koundé. And it was happening time and time again. He decided, this time I'm going to track back with the most half-hearted attempt. The way Di Maria breezes past him in the first action is genuinely disgraceful. Like in a World Cup final, he's turned his back, and in a desperate attempt to make amends, he's clumsy. It's really, really soft. I'm not denying that. It's super soft, but he clips him and Di Maria goes down. He wanted that penalty from the moment he controlled the ball. So don't give him the opportunity to go down.
Yep.
It's been the penalty World Cup and you just gifted them another one. And for me, there's plenty of people saying it wasn't a penalty, but the anger should lie at the feet of Dembele, not at the awarding, in my opinion.
I totally agree. And I mean, even if you want to say it's soft, like soft penalties are still penalties, right? The problem with it is if you believe that he clips his foot, causing it to go into his other foot, he can't stay on his feet, right? That's the problem, right? There's some penalties where you're like, just stay up, don't go down from that. But when your feet tangle up, you're going to go down. And if Dembele caused it, it's penalty. Anyway, Messi steps up, and I feel like every episode now we talk about how Messi's one weakness is penalties, but not in this tournament. Like this tournament has been the Messi penalty redemption tour, and he took this one perfectly.
So cool. I mean, I would have loved to have like a heart monitor on him at that moment just to see how low it could have dropped. Because for me, it looked like it was in the 70s or something, or the 60s. But I got a little bit scared when he went for the run up because I was like, Messi's never really done that before, and it kind of set up the narrative for why has he changed the run up? Do it properly, the Brexit run up and smash it into the corner. But Lloris showed his hand early, I would say, but it was cool as you like, and I think in that moment, the only thing I mean, that was a clear sign of the dominance, of Argentina's dominance, because France was simply not in that game. I mean, they showed nothing in that first half, and with a French team like this who just kind of have an air of inevitability around them, you kind of need to kill them off, and that was kind of stage one in that project, in that process for Argentina.
Yeah, and I think I think it was deserved. I don't think France were very much in the game for the first 40 minutes or so. And then we get another goal from Angel Di Maria. Your thoughts?
It's a brilliant goal. I mean, again, it's kind of chaotic from a French point of view because positionally they were all over the place. I mean, why Upamecano comes out to try and deal with Messi on the halfway line is beyond me. And then it's just players trying to play catch up after that. And it happens when you're playing good teams, they can pull you apart. But that for me felt very self-inflicted. I don't think Argentina had to work particularly hard for the opening.
Mm-hmm. I have it as one of the goals of the tournament. So we see it slightly differently. Goal. Yeah. There's so many really good decisions and touches that have to be made. Like everybody's involvement in it is the exact involvement that's needed. And the one, Phil, that I think deserves, is it McAllister who plays the last pass? I think it is, right?
Yeah, he's the one that makes the third man run beyond. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to give him credit because the two things you see there commonly are the guy just sees sight a goal and smashes it. The other thing you see is he doesn't have he doesn't have the confidence in playing that pass early, so he carries it a little longer, hoping for it to get easier and gives the defense time to get back into position and the chance is gone.
Mm-hmm.
He takes it, he makes the decision early, he plays the perfect cross, right? The perfect slid ball across into Di Maria, and Di Maria finished it. But like, I think McAllister deserves a lot of credit for that, because you see that move ruined either by a shot being taken or a man wanting to take too much time. And we will be talking about a man who wanted to take too much time with Lautaro Martinez later. So I thought it was a really fantastic goal personally.
It's a brilliant goal, and the way it happened so quickly just kind of set the fire alight, shall we say, for the final. I mean, don't get me wrong, I saw a lot of issues there from a France point of view, but from an Argentinian side, the movement, the one touch play, the execution was faultless. And people look at it and say it might be it might be an easy one, but like you said, the kind of temperament and the patience and the awareness of McAllister running through there was excellent. And he just found Di Maria coming onto it in that moment, and the finish is brilliant as well. Is it a little bit Özily?
Yeah,
a
that's
little
the
bit
sense
bouncy.
I have as well. Yep, bounced in. Yep.
It was just really, really nice. And that goal for me summed up the two teams at that moment. France were kind of all over the place. Argentina very switched on, strong in their technique, strong in their decision making, and they were like the red arrows at that point. It was brilliantly executed, and from that point on, I honestly didn't see much of a way back in. Even at that, that early on, I didn't see much from France because they looked gassed, they looked finished, and I was wondering where that bit of inspiration was going to come from.
Yeah, I mean, there's Argentina fans crying, there's Argentina players crying. I mean, Messi's got his World Cup, it's over, right? I mean, it had been pretty dominant, and Deschamps makes a change, and I admit at the time, I think I tweeted like, this feels like a change for change's sake. Because I was sort of thinking, well, France aren't playing their way through, so why not lump it into the box to the big man, right? Fall down every time you feel contact and start lumping it into the box. That's not the move they make. They bring on Marcus Thuram and Colomwani.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to admit, Colomwani is a new name to me.
Mm-hmm.
What do I need to know about this player prior to this? And what did you think then? What did you think in the moment about that change that he made?
I mean, it was one hell of a statement, but ultimately it was one that I couldn't really disagree with. Even though I can understand the thinking behind keeping Giroud on and maybe trying to give yourselves a different outlet, because like you said, Tchouaméni, Rabiot, they were just being crowded out and there was no way through. And I can understand the argument for Giroud to try and, play off him and around him. But I mean, Dembélé for me was abysmal. I mean, nothing was happening for him offensively or defensively, and I had no issue with bringing him off. Ultimately, what I think Deschamps wanted to do was make the statement, as in, this is unacceptable, and you're coming off. I don't care if it's a World Cup final. And B, I just think he wanted presence up front, because Dembélé was so timid. Giroud was often outnumbered. Even if he was winning the headers, there was no second balls. And I just think Thuram, Kolo Muani, two wide forwards, big, strong, they can win their duels. I just think he wanted Argentina to think a little bit, and it didn't happen straight away. Even after the changes, I thought there was maybe 20, 30 minutes where they weren't effective. But I mean, credit to Kolo Muani. I think he was the only one after coming on, that was injecting any kind of urgency into France's play. He was putting himself about. He was winning 50-50s. In the air, he was strong. And he's having a really, really good season for Frankfurt. And he was kind of a late arrival into the squad after the injury to Benzema. I think he's got 8 goals and 9 assists for Frankfurt this season. But it wasn't so long ago that he was playing in the 4th division of French football. I think it was 3 seasons ago that he was playing in the 4th division. So on a personal level, it's an incredible rise for him. And he scored in the last game. He kind of put the seal on the win in the semi-final. Or was it the quarterfinal? Sorry, the quarterfinal. No, it was the semi-final, wasn't it? Against Morocco? Yeah, the deflected, Mbappe strike. And yeah, I thought he was kind of the only one trying to inflict any change in this game. And you know, you don't need to give Otamendi too much of an opportunity to go full Otamendi. And I think to his credit, he's been really good this tournament.
Mm-hmm.
But with defenders like that, they just need a single moment of stress, a single moment to feel uncomfortable. And you saw it there. Someone running beyond him for the first time in the game brings him down. And France are back in it, you know, and that for a long time, it didn't look like that was going to happen.
Yeah. And once, so, you know, the game, I feel bad for anyone who's a casual out there. And I mean, let's not feel bad for casuals because they're missing out on the greatest sport in the world. But like at 2-0, they may have switched off and missed what became the greatest football match in the history of the World Cup, I think, if not one of the best football matches I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I know we have a tendency to like to crown things in the moment because we want to believe we've just witnessed history, but I think we really have. And it starts with that penalty in the 80th minute. And it's just like Argentina self-destructed. They really, really self-destructed, and they are lucky ultimately to get away with this. To be fair, then France were lucky to get away with some shit that happened with them too. But let's talk about it. Kylian Mbappe, the opening penalty, and what you're thinking in that moment when this game really didn't have that much life to it, didn't have that much heat in it, and how this is now changing your perception of what's going on.
No, I mean, look, I didn't write the game off completely, but it was getting to kind of done deal territory for me because I just genuinely didn't see enough from France.
And by the way, a lot of people had a lot of Mbappe tweets that wound up having to get deleted because a lot of Mbappe fraud confirmed, or just a push and run merchant, yada yada yada. So
I mean, he was quiet, but with players of that caliber, of that quality, all they need is a couple of moments. And look, the penalty was maybe an easier one to execute, but at the end of the day, it takes a lot of metal and technical ability to get that in. But the second goal, I mean, the defending is not great, I will say, from Argentina. I don't know where Nahuel Molina, the right back, is going in that moment. He just leaves his position. And Mbappe's kind of got that whole space between the centre back and the right back, and then Romero doesn't know where to go. And actually, when I think it was Rabiot who played the ball over, I was screaming, take it down, you've got so much space. And then what does he do? He just fires a technically perfect volley straight, low, hard into the corner. I mean, Emi Martinez gets a touch onto it, but I think it's a really hard one for him to save because at the end of the day, he's 6'5", and to get down in the blink of an eye is impossible. And he takes it so well. And in, what was it, 2 minutes? The previous 79 were just eradicated in those 2 moments. And it just shows you the fine margins in football and how important quality is, because Argentina had chances. They had chances to finish that game, and they couldn't do it. There's always a small window open, and Mbappe doesn't need, another invitation. And from that moment on, it was carnage, genuine, absolute carnage.
I can't even process what happened after that moment, Phil, because
yeah,
both teams just decided, oh shit, we need to win this now, and absolutely went for it. And it was extraordinary, just an extraordinary sequence of events. Once we got to 2-2, and like it was exactly what you want, right? Because you had Messi had gotten his penalty. I think he'd been okay. He had dripped his quality on the game, but he'd been okay. Mbappe had been absent. And then Mbappe comes to life, scores a penalty, scores a stunning second. And then Messi starts to come to life. And every time he touches it, he creates something. And I'm probably fast forwarding through a number of other chances. But what will be forgotten in the sea of chances is a stunning strike from the top of the box from Messi that Lloris denies as a winner at the very, very tail end, 7 minutes into stoppage time of regular time. And there were multiple other moments mixed in there too that I'm not even mentioning. That was up there as like the wildest 15, 20 minutes of football I've ever seen.
It was crazy. The script was well and truly written for him there. I just think the strike was a little too central, even though Lloris gets a good hand to it, a big, strong hand.
Yeah, that's true.
But I just think the kind of the pattern of Argentina struggling to close out games was a really interesting one, because we've seen it throughout the knockout stages. They were cruising against Australia. They conceded in the last 10 minutes. And then it took an incredible wonder save from Emi Martinez to stop that going to extra time. Then they play against Netherlands. Again, 2-0 up, in control. Weghorst gets one, and then that crazy set piece at the end that pulls them back again, extra time again. And now we've seen it again in the World Cup final with France. They should have been out of sight. Really, that game should have been secured. Messi should have been doing his round of, around the pitch, clapping, tapping the badge. And somehow they were heading into extra time with, an incredible amount of jeopardy. And I did a bit of research, and up until the 79th minute in the knockout stages, Argentina outscored their opponents by 9-1. And then after the 79th minute, they were outscored by 4-0. So in the final 10 minutes, there's a clear pattern of them, letting things slip, maybe losing some composure, some of their shape. I mean, it was genuinely crazy. And there was that moment where Marcus Thuram went down, and I thought the ref gave a penalty, but then he booked him. It was just hearts
and it was
in
right.
mouths.
I think it was right. By the way,
Yes, I think he
right.
did exaggerate for sure. He was falling down, but
he
to
hooks
be able
his
to,
leg behind the defender and then uses
I
that
think
as an opportunity to go down.
I think Enzo Fernandez pulls out just in the just before he's about to boot him right in the shin.
When did it happen? There was a moment where there could have been it was a borderline penalty. It was either a foul on the edge of the area or inside the area, but the ref let them play on, which wound up being the right move, I think.
Yeah, it was Kingsley Coman right on the edge of the box.
Yeah, because then they wind up with a well-struck chance from the channel. That's is it smothered by Emi, I guess, but it's like a good chance.
Yeah. It was just so back and forth, and I loved it. Really, I enjoyed it so much.
So one of the big moments in extra time is Lautaro Martinez coming on. And this guy, he was a few missed penalties away from having to give up his Argentinian passport, because it was a very Higuain-esque kind of appearance. And the two that stand out for me, the one where he's sent through, was it by Messi, or Messi creates the opening, whatever it is, and he decides he wants an extra touch when he's got hit the first time. The other one that stands out is 120 plus 4, when there's a cross lifted to him and his header is dreadful. Now, to be fair, that's not an easy header. It's probably not a goal just if he gets his head to it properly, whatever. The first one, I think, is the bigger miss, but he just had a number of other moments. He had one where he was 1v1 with, was it Upamecano?
Yeah, it was Upamecano.
And he like slows, like he waits for it. And he's so lucky to see the flag go up there. And that one that was offside. But like his appearance definitely had Higuain vibes, didn't it?
Definitely. I mean, he's a lucky boy, and I think he went over to Messi at the end of the penalty shootout, and there was a little bit of an embrace there, and I think I could feel the tension just kind of rolling off his shoulders, because look, it's difficult to come in cold as a substitute, and I think Julian Alvarez is kind of the flavor of the month now with the Argentina fans and how they're playing, because he, don't forget, Lautaro Martinez was starting. He started the first game against Saudi Arabia. Yeah. So, you're looking to come on and make an impact. And I just think it was kind of one of those days where everything is going against you. His finishing wasn't clean. He looked so kind of leaden-footed and slow. And, but yeah, like you said, that header he missed at the end, it came after a crazy passage of play where Emi Martinez probably makes the save of the tournament. Yep. To save from Kolo Muani. I mean, that is a strong hand. Yeah, I mean...
So, how does that chance even come to exist?
It's gone from my memory. I just see Kolo Muani going through. I think
over the top.
Mbappe
it's just totally misjudged. Yeah.
And he strikes it really well, but I just think Emi Martinez makes himself so
NHL
big.
Hockey kick save and a beauty. I mean, it is such a good kick save. It's in 120 plus 3, and there's still time for Martinez to miss that header. Yeah, that's one of the great saves you'll ever see, isn't it?
Yeah, it reminded me of that championship playoff goal that Troy Deeney scored that one time. I don't know if you know it, where I think it was Anthony Knockaert missed the penalty and Almunia saved it, and then Watford go up the other end and
Yep.
score the famous
Yep.
goal, and it was
Yep.
like, here's Hog Deeney. I mean, imagine if after all of that drama and the incredible save from Emi Martinez, that they just go up in the other end and score a header, in extra time, injury time. I mean, I couldn't keep up. Honestly, I was looking at my TV, then it was going to Twitter to see what was happening there, and then it was like it was crazy, honestly crazy.
There was a
Um,
cross, I think an Mbappe cross that Mwani can't get his head to, but I thought it was going to go straight in.
yeah, yeah,
Remember
yeah. It
that?
nearly
Yeah.
curled into the corner. Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And even
Um,
at the end, there was another bit where Mbappe kind of waltzed into the box. He beat two or three players, and he just couldn't get the little space required to fire off a shot. Really, I mean, it was NBA playoff.
the the funny thing is we haven't even
Um,
talked about the actual goals that were scored in stoppage time yet.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
let's get to that. I mean, surely when you score in the 108th minute, you've won the World Cup. And that's exactly what happens. Messi is just Johnny on the spot, not the goal you equate with Messi. I was convinced that it was going to be offside,
Me
but
too. Yeah, yeah.
Upa's gigantic rear end is
The
ultimately
backside
what
of
yeah,
Upa. Yeah.
is ultimately what plays Martinez on, and to his credit, he smashes Lloris in the face,
hmm
which will now be an iconic moment in football history. We should all be thankful for that. And Messi's there to sort of bundle it in. And at that moment, I'm
Yeah.
like, this is unbelievable. He couldn't write this script. Messi has just scored a winner in 108th minute of extra time to win the World Cup final. Again, the script doesn't make any sense, not possible, but that's where we were in the moment.
Completely. I mean, I like you was just waiting for the referee to blow the whistle.
Mm-hmm.
Get the ball down, off we go. Because in real time, he looked so offside.
The
I mean, it
flag
was
went up. I don't
yeah,
know if
yeah,
you
yeah.
noticed this, but after the goal is given,
At the
the
end,
linesman
yeah, yeah,
raised
yeah.
his flag.
It did.
Yeah.
And I think it was just the momentum of Upamecano going forward and Lautaro Martinez going the other way that made the gap look so big. But yeah, I mean, I was just waiting for it. They're celebrating in the corner, and I was like, it's offside. It's offside. Just waiting for the referee to blow, and then incredibly, it was onside. Messi's there to put it in. I mean, Jules Koundé tried his best to clear it off the line, but and again, kind of how Mbappe was a bit inevitable for France. You just figured in that moment, at this stage of the tournament, with what's on the line, it just had to be Messi, right? And that was the kind of the Neymar moment. Do you remember against Croatia? It was that moment, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's the word? It was kind of that moment, like replayed out, should we say? It was their talisman, their star man. He's done it for his country, and then they're pegged back again with one of the most ridiculous bits of defending. I mean, yeah.
And then this whole World Cup sort of turned into a laughing at Harry Kane moment too, because like the whole narrative around Harry Kane is like, well, he had to take 2 penalties. That's too much to ask. And like
hmm
Mbappe took 3 and Messi made 2 and everybody's making
Yes.
penalties all of a sudden. But
Messi's
then
taken 89,000 penalties in Qatar.
and scored them all. And
Yeah.
then we have a guy who could have become the scapegoat if it wasn't going to be Lautaro Martinez, and that's Gonzalo Montiel. Now,
hmm
ironically, he becomes the hero, which is
hmm
lucky for him. But you can't have your arm out like that in
It's
that situation.
crazy.
It's like
It's
what do you do?
crazy.
And I get it. Mbappe can score from there. But if you're measuring, and this is what's hard, right? Human instinct is I gotta block this ball. I get it. But like I'm also not playing in the World Cup final for my nation. Surely you've got to have more sense than to do that. And like maybe part of the problem, Phil, is that like a lot of these guys grew up on football when there was no VAR, right? There was none of that stuff. And like, but the refs have gotten better, the VAR has gotten better. Like that cheeky get your arm up and knock the shot. Like you're not getting away with that. What are you doing?
I mean, I don't know if he was just running on pure adrenaline there, or a desperation to try and stop anything going towards the goal. But it was a moment of madness. Having finally got yourselves back into the lead, you've got just a few minutes to see it out, and then you've made history. and his head completely went,
Completely
and
went. Yep.
it's just, it's funny, isn't it? You, in that situation, pressure kills you. And I think being scared of what could happen just impacted his decision making, and it was crazy. I mean, it wasn't even one that you look at and you say, it's a little bit harsh. I mean, the arm is so out and up, it's basically, he's trying to be the goalkeeper there. And it's, another chance for Mbappe. He tucks it away just about. Or was that the one? It was that the one in the penalty shootout that he just about
That's
got.
the one, the penalty shootout. Yep.
Yeah, I think this one he sent Emmy the wrong way, didn't
Yep.
he? And hat trick in a World Cup final. Do you know the only other hat trick in a World Cup final?
No, yeah. Hutton, is that it? Or Hatton? Who is it? Was it he tweeted out something about it, and I saw it, but I can't remember the name.
Who's that? Hutton.
I don't know. There was someone.
Yeah, it's from Jeff Hurst in 1966.
Yeah, all right. Just because I mispronounced the name is what it is.
Yeah, Jeff Hurst. So I mean, it's an incredible feat and an
I love how
achievement
you had
to
the
be able to
indignation. Hutton, what the hell is that, you idiot?
No, because I was like, did I get it wrong? So I had to double check.
You absolutely have it right.
I had to double check my notes there. But yeah, so it hasn't been done in such a long time, and for him to be able to do that at 23, 24 years of age now, it's just, it's pretty clear for me where the baton is going after, Messi hands it off. He's just a marvel. And I think if, the whole narrative of Messi is not there and Argentina finally winning a historic World Cup after however many years, 35 years, a lot of people would be talking about him tonight, but I just think it's kind of not his day, but he's a marvel. He's a phenomenon. Yeah.
And he's going to be the guy, if someone is going to be the guy to potentially challenge Messi's legacy. Mbappe is going to be the guy to challenge Messi's legacy. Now,
yeah, I will say quickly, Di Maria, that was a bold decision sticking him out on the left today. And I think Scaloni deserves a lot of credit because I think he got things wrong against Saudi Arabia. Even though the result was kind of a freak in the way that it happened and in the way it unfolded, I just thought the team selection was too safe, too wrong, and he didn't lean into some excellent young players that we've seen come to the fore. I thought Enzo Fernandez was incredible again today. I thought Julian Alvarez, again, a real kind of handful up front. He took Papu Gomez out. He took Lautaro Martinez out. He's taken Guido Rodriguez out. He's taken Leandro Paredes onto a back seat. He's brought Enzo Fernandez in. He's brought Alvarez in. Alexis McAllister, who's been one of the players of the tournament. He changed it up against the Netherlands. He matched them with a back three. I just think slowly, with each passing round, Scaloni has really kind of shown his tactical acumen. And again today, I thought there was a lot of balance in midfield. He went with Otamendi and Romero, even though Lisandro Martinez might be a more natural fit at left centre-back. I think he's made some big calls. And to kind of gamble with Di Maria, I thought he executed that plan perfectly. And just a word for Di Maria, who I think has been one of the most underrated players of the last 10, 15 years. I think he's spoken quite openly about the heartbreak of missing the 2014 final through injury. And this was a kind of a nice redemption for him because I think I've really enjoyed him in the last 10, 15 years. And I love that he's been good everywhere apart from Manchester United, which is, a really nice bit of satisfaction for me because when I saw him at Real Madrid, especially when Carlo Ancelotti moved him into that central role, I thought he was the best player in Europe that year. So a really nice moment for him because it looked like he was being phased out, but he was phased back in and he made his mark.
Yeah. Should we cover the penalties quickly?
Yeah, we can do.
Yeah, I mean, Martinez is good at this. I think we've seen that. I think it showed up again. But my only thought from the penalty shootout, other than that, is first of all, we saw a goalkeeper do a shimmy, which was fun. But I just didn't want Messi or Mbappe to miss. I didn't want the the fraudulence claims from the usual internet weirdos for either of those guys who deserve to walk off this pitch as heroes, either in victory or defeat. And we got the good penalties from Messi and Mbappe, and that was the key.
Yeah, I mean, Mbappe's one just squeezed through. Emi got a big hand to it, and I thought, oof, when I looked at it on the replay, I thought that could have gone either way, that one. But Messi again, I mean, so cool. He sat down Lloris again, who went to ground really early. I'm not sure if he was trying to psych Messi out, but he kind of showed his hand. Messi puts it in the other corner. But yeah, Kingsley Coman's penalty was not struck with much authority, was it? And then I think from that point on, it was kind of Argentina's to lose. I mean, obviously, yes, in a statistical sense it is, but I don't know. I just felt in that moment, did France have anything left? Because even to be in the final, I thought they rode their luck, a fair few times. And in this game, they rode their luck a fair few times. So just could they find any kind of mental or physical resource to come back? And they couldn't. So, ultimately, I don't think it's a generation-defining defeat for France, because I think they'll just always be good with their talent pool. I just think the whole story, the narrative, was set up for Messi and Argentina, and it's very difficult to stop that. Even in a low-scoring sport like football.
I want to do the whole context thing. I want to put the game in context, the players in context, the win in context, and look back on the tournament quickly before we get out of here. But first, I do want to make sure we tell you that this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. We talk about BetterHelp on this podcast a lot. And the reason we talk about it is because it's a good way to get access to therapy for people who, for one reason or another, may not be able to, whether it's cost, availability, knowing how to find a therapist, comfort with going in to see a therapist, or just feeling like therapy is for big, big problems, when it can be, but of course it can be just for, the everyday, I need help, coping skills, things like that. So a couple things to tell you about BetterHelp. As the world's largest therapy service, BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists, available 100% online, plus it's affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. If things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to another therapist anytime. Couldn't be simpler. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/vision. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P. Proof that I can spell. BetterHelp, HELP.com/vision. Do it now. Phil, is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Nailed it. Okay. First of all, I just want to have a quick word about Lionel Messi, who the whole internet seemed to be terrified of him not winning this, wanted him to win it, unless you were French. Everybody else seemed to want Messi to get, or your Ronaldo stan. Tough day for those guys. But then when he won it, I think other people were happier for him than he was. Is that the most taking it in stride celebration? Again, I'm sure he was overwhelmed, but smiling, waving to the crowd. Well, maybe I didn't see enough of the post-celebration, but there were hysterical Argentina players and fans. And Messi, the guy that everybody wanted it so badly for, and probably his last chance to get it, just waving and smiling. Oh, you're on mute. Gotcha for once. There you go. That's
I am. Yeah. Look, you know what? This happens. It happens. This is an authenticity. Yeah. I just felt, to be fair, he gave a fair whack for the celebrations. I mean, for the goal that he scored in extra time, there was a lot of emotion from him. And I just felt this whole Argentina squad were on a very fine line in terms of how much they were putting into this. It's very much going into Brazil territory for how much this means to them, and there was such an emotional burden, not just on Messi, but onto the players themselves to win it for Messi. And I think there was maybe an element of this not quite sinking in yet, because what he's achieved in this moment, what he's achieved tonight, has crowned the ultimate footballing career. I mean, there's nobody else. I'm pretty confident in saying there's nobody else who will be able to match this resume, ever.
I don't think it's... I mean, we always say that about the greats, and then someone comes along and does it. I don't... Yeah, it's not going to happen anytime soon, that's for sure.
We've... Over the last 20 years, we've witnessed a footballing alien, who's just managed to improve at an incredible rate and break records, win Ballon d'Ors, win Champions Leagues, go unbeaten, and this was literally the last thing he needed to do to win, um, the hearts of, his own people, because it's
Yeah.
often been a really difficult relationship with Argentinians in the World Cup, and there's often been a sour note of maybe underperformance or underachievement. They've got the greatest ever player after having the previous greatest ever player,
Yep.
and that was his shining glory. He's done it for Argentina, but finally now he can put those demons to rest. And I wanted him to do it. I'm so glad that he has done it, because in my lifetime I don't think I'll see anything ever like him again.
Yeah.
It's just what we've witnessed is extraterrestrial.
Football is in basketball. One player can't win a thing for their team. I think Messi has been the most unlike any player I've ever seen in that he can, at his best, in his pomp, win a thing for his team. He had moments in the last 20 minutes of regular time and in extra time tonight where he was doing that thing, where he seems like he can just win it for his team. Every touch seemed to create something. But this was the last thing that supposedly you could use to say he wasn't the greatest, and now he is. And I think it just takes a lot of bad faith arguments off the table. I don't like, had he not won this, I don't think it changes his resume particularly, because he did everything this guy can be asked to do. And I don't particularly, the weird thing is I don't have any particular love for Messi. I just find the arguments against him, being that he hasn't won a World Cup, kind of bad faith. So, and this France team is going to be around for a long time. They still have a lot of talent, and
Absolutely,
they have
absolutely.
the best player in the world, heir apparent, who is in his early 20s and is not going anywhere. In terms of where this final sits, right now in the moment, the temptation to say greatest final of all time. I don't know. I haven't seen all the finals. I mean, surely though it is, right? I mean, like, how do you? There were chances at the death in regulation time. There were chances at the death for both teams in stoppage time. There were tons of goals. There were, 6 goals were scored, tons more that could have and should have been. There were hero moments. There were disaster moments. The two biggest names in the game went toe to toe in this game and both delivered. I don't see a box you had to check for this to have elevated itself anymore in stature in terms of being, if not the greatest, certainly one of the greatest World Cup finals ever played.
Yeah, completely. I don't think we'd be able to recreate the chaos and the carnage of that last 35 minutes. It was genuinely action in every action. There was action in every action, whether it was counterattacks, chances, penalty decisions. Like you said, the stage being set of Messi against Mbappe. The new kid on the block against the greatest player that we've seen. It was just mad, really, and I can't remember a game shocking me so much. Maybe the 6-1 Barcelona game when
Yeah.
they came back against PSG in the
Yeah.
Champions League, just from the sheer madness of that, and the unlikelihood of it happening.
I think the Arsenal 7-5 over Reading in the Carling Cup is up there, but
Where guess who starred in that game as well, Mr. Rami
Marouane
Martinez.
Chamakh.
So, and his weird celebration at the end or was it when Giroud and Coquelin were giving their shirts back to the crowd, and it was like, oh wait, we've got extra time. But yeah, I just think there was just so much happening in every second of this, and I hate that Gianni Infantino and the nerds at FIFA HQ can sit back and say, "Oh, we've given the world the best final." They didn't deserve it. They don't deserve that satisfaction. They deserve
No, I think we
bad
can.
things.
I think we can rephrase it. So I don't want to give them that satisfaction. I think what we can say is they have on their hands such a, to be cliche, beautiful game, such a tremendous game, that even their grift cannot ruin it. Even their corruption cannot ruin it. That at its core, what football keeps showing you is that when you get on the pitch and you put those 22 players out there, it is a game unlike any other. And it is going, and the passion of the fans who love it and support their teams, and the talent of the players that go and play it, and the elegance and beauty of the game itself means that it delivers. And it delivers not because of, but in spite of the grift, and the corruption among the people. And by the way, I included that the FAs and the UEFAs and the FIFAs. I mean, it's a week where we got news that there's going to be a 32 team Club World Cup, because if there's one thing we've seen from the Club World Cup that had 4 teams in it or whatever it's been, it's that it's, blockbuster football that everybody's dying to watch. But the point is the game elevates beyond all of this. And again, I'm not just wagging a finger at FIFA. It's the corrupt owners of the big clubs in the world. It's super leagues and UEFAs, and it's all of it. But the game cannot be held down. And I think tonight is just a reminder that the reason these guys can line their pockets is because they have stardust. And it's, when you have stardust, people are always going to be willing to tolerate what's going on behind the scenes. That's the way I prefer to look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
Well, it's not that I'm right. I mean, you're right too. But I'm trying to angle it in such a way that I can celebrate the game I love in the midst of all that. So, in terms of, we talked about the Messi of it. We talked about the Mbappe, the France, where the game sits as a tournament. It's a brilliant tournament. This final is a crowning achievement. It will be the lasting memory. I think the tournament really delivered. And I do wonder, as much as I never want to see another World Cup in the middle of a season again, do you think that a World Cup that was played when most of the players in it are in mid-season form might be a big reason why we got a World Cup somewhat unlike any other?
I mean, potentially. I mean, it's always difficult to say because there's so many variables, that it's impossible to take all of them into account. But I think there is definitely something to be said about that. I think, interestingly enough, The Guardian, ahead of the World Cup, The Guardian released an article about a study that showed in November, that was the month where statistically most players get injured, So
interesting.
It's been quite interesting.
So it's been true at Arsenal.
Yes, and there were some big players not playing here, whether it's Pogba, Benzema. I mean, there were a lot of players that just made it in as well. I mean, in France alone, you could draw 3, 4, 5 different examples. But I think in general, the level was high. We've seen teams who would normally be considered the underdogs, or teams who have maybe not even been considered in the past because of their status. I'm thinking Saudi Arabia, teams like Morocco, even Cameroon. We've seen some excellent football being played across the board. Really, a real equalization of talent and physical ability. And I think that's been, for me, one of the most refreshing conclusions from this tournament, that it wasn't just the big 8. It wasn't just Brazil, France, Spain, Germany. We saw Japan have two iconic results. We had Morocco challenge France until the very last moment. We had Cameroon making history in their group stage. We had there was a lot of really, really good football. Saudi Arabia beating Argentina. When has that ever happened? And I just think international football is on a, I don't particularly feel too attached to it or too involved with it. For me, club football will always be number one. That's always going to be my priority.
Same. Yep,
and
no doubt.
I've got no issue to admit that. But I enjoyed this so much as a spectacle. I thought the football, boiling it down to the football alone, which I understand will be difficult for a lot of people because, obvious conversations need to be had and should be had. But boiling it down to solely what happened on the pitch, I really, really enjoyed it. And having watched, I would say, over 90% of the games, it's one that I will remember for a long time because there were upsets, there were last-minute shocks, there were group stage shocks, there was an African team making history. One of my favorite ever players has won the World Cup to crown his incredible footballing CV. I mean, there was just so much to love and to like about this. And yeah, hopefully this can be a real positive for international football. And I'm glad that for now, Infantino seems to have realized that maybe the 32 team format is a nice one,
It remains to be seen whether the schmucks who run football
they'll find a way
can ruin a thing And that is so good. We will find out. But my lasting thought on this is that I from a footballing standpoint, I enjoyed it tremendously. I mean, 9 times out of 10, you'll hear me say I would have rather watched that Arsenal Juve friendly yesterday than watch an international game. But football has even surprised me. I was totally enwrapped in this. I was totally caught up in it, and I'm stunned by what we saw in this final. It is a match that, if you were told ahead of time what happened, wouldn't have encompassed everything that happened. We probably missed half a dozen moments. It was for about 50 minutes, maybe 40 minutes. It's one of the most exhilarating, nerve-shredding experiences I've had watching football, and I didn't even really care. So, in terms of the outcome, I do want to say thank you to Lewis for being a part of this. I want to say thanks for Tim and Paul when they've stood in, and especially you, Phill. You put in absolute yeoman work, heroic work, being on all of these. I think we've done about 20 of them. In when all said and done, and your knowledge, so that when I say, for example, that I admire the work of a player named Pizzella, you can laugh at me and ridicule me and correct me. I all kidding aside, thank you for being a part of this and for the knowledge you brought and the commitment you brought to it. Made it possible. So thank you.
No, I've enjoyed it. I loved it after we did it with the Euros, and I had a lot of conflicting emotions going into this World Cup, but I hope that despite the obvious issues and the problems and the things that should come out in the post-mortem of this tournament on a purely football note. Yeah, thank you for having me, and I've really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, thank you.
As have I.
And thanks to all the listeners, because some of the feedback has been great. I've loved like some of the memes and the reaction and the Patreon comments. And I just want to say again, it was a penalty. Julian Alvarez was cleaned out, and I'm taking this to my grave.
I'm not doing any audio editing on what you've just done to our earlobes there. Well, so that will do it. Obviously, Phill will be on other Arsenal Vision podcasts in the future and Patreon podcasts in the future. And we have a lot of scouting stuff that we did. By the way, we just recently did scouting videos for João Felix and Dika, also for Fuller and Balogun and Charlie Patino and Austin Trusty. Those are all there. But now we turn attention to league-leading Arsenal Football Club in their challenge, their quest to win the title. And if football can shock us in the World Cup the way it has, maybe it can deliver a shock and a joy to Arsenal as our season gets ready to pick back up. So for the next few years, at least, we will retire the synthesizer music, the keyboard tunes. You'll hear them one last time, and then we will love you, and we will talk to you after Arsenal 10, West Ham 0.